RAC DC's Reception and Placement Program is our initial resettlement program. It's funded by the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, and it's literally what it sounds. We receive refugees from around the world at the airport, and we place them in initial housing and help them get acclimated to life in the United States, including providing a cultural orientation about how to adjust to life in the United States. We put the children in school, we help the parents enroll in ESL, we put them in permanent housing, make sure that their medical needs are met with the ultimate goal of employment and self-sufficiency. We decided to take on the reception and placement program because of the large amount of Afghan refugees that are already living in Northern Virginia. So prior to the collapse of Afghanistan, there was a large existing Afghan population, many of whom arrived during the 80s when the Soviets invaded, and then over the last few years as something called special immigrant visa holders. So these were the interpreters and translators that worked alongside of our troops and our NGOs in Afghanistan. So when Afghanistan collapsed, there was a huge need for resettlement agencies, particularly in Northern Virginia, because so many of the Afghan evacuees and now refugees and SIVs want to be resettled here. So when I came on as the CEO of REACT, I decided that we really needed to help the existing resettlement agencies. And we decided to apply and got approved for the program in order to increase capacity to welcome Afghans, but also we have a large caseload from Central and South America as well. So really wanted to just help the existing resettlement agencies make sure that there was enough infrastructure and capacity to welcome all of the folks that really wanted to make this Northern Virginia their permanent home. So we support newly arrived refugees with all of basic needs support. So temporary housing and then permanent housing. We provide basic food support while they're waiting for their TANF and food stamps to become active. We provide them with employment assistance. We make sure that they have a basic medical screening, that their children are enrolled in school, and then we do an employment referral and get everybody working as soon as possible. So it's really at the beginning basic needs support, and when the reception and placement program ends, we make sure that they're referred to our other existing programs like legal services, women's empowerment, employment upgrades, and mental health services. So I think we're unique in that we are really client-centered and trauma-informed. I'm a clinical social worker, so it's really important to me that we meet clients where they are and understand that refugees are just human beings who had an experience happen to them that they've been forced to flee. So it should not define who they are. It's just something that happened to them, and they bring a strong skill set and a whole life of experience. And they don't need us to do things for them. They just need us to help them navigate a very complex system in the United States. Our resettlement manager, who you'll meet on social media as well, is an Afghan SIV. So he brings the experience of having lived through forced migration right as Afghanistan collapsed, and can really, again, help new arrivals, because he's now lived in the United States for 3 years, but he also understands how difficult it was when he first arrived. And so he brings a lot of compassion to the role. And just the broader REACT DC, again, we are really client-centered, trauma-informed. We're really responsive, and we want to hear from the clients what they need, and we don't dictate to them how we think their resettlement should go. So we're able to help financially with housing initially. We get a certain amount of money. It's called a per capita from the State Department. It's not a lot of money, so we're also expected to do fundraising. It's considered a public-private partnership. But with that money, because of the cost of living in Northern Virginia, we use most of the per capita to help families secure housing. And so we're able to really work with landlords who want to rent to refugees. So for instance, I was just at the bank this morning getting a bunch of cashier's checks to move, I want to say it was 4 different families into permanent housing. And when they move in, we'll also help facilitate a home setup. We partner with Homes Not Borders, which is a great agency that does all of the home setups for our clients, and they provide really welcoming furnishings to make sure that families feel welcome in their new apartments. We rely on a network of community partners. So Homes Not Borders, as I just mentioned, does our home setup for us. We work with a federally qualified health center called HealthWorks. They're based in Loudoun County, and so they do all of our initial refugee health screenings. And then the refugees stay there, and it's their medical home. They're fabulous. They coordinate transportation for the initial screenings. They refer out to specialists as needed. They help do the school enrollment forms for the refugee children. And then we partner with a wide array of other nonprofits, including Pillars for Humanity. We work with Nova Raft. So we rely on a strong network of partners because we're a small grassroots agency, and we know that it takes a lot of folks to have refugees resettle successfully. So my staff knows that we never turn anybody away. So if they are community members that are seeking services, or there are initial reception and placement clients, at 90 days, while the reception and placement program technically ends, we will transition them to other programs. And so a good example of that is our legal services. So if they need to adjust their status to get what's traditionally known as their green card, we can help them with that. If they want to be enrolled in our women's empowerment program, we're happy to do that. And so if we don't have the services in-house, which we're lucky to have many ongoing long-term integration programs, then we would refer them to other community partners. The reception and placement is an initial basic needs support program, but we will then make sure that our clients have long-term success. And a lot of that is focused on employment. And so in this next year, we're going to be doing a big push for job upgrades, for certification, CDL training. We got some funding from the Office of New Americans to make sure that people are really successful in the long term. One of our first arrivals is a single mother with 2 children. So she's in her apartment. She has a home set up. Her kids are in school. She's going to be working with our employment team to make sure that she's getting a job. We're looking at possibly getting her a position in the school where her daughter goes. She's highly educated, fluent English speaker, and we're going to work with another intensive case management program to hopefully get her license with the ultimate goal of a car and employment. So she's doing pretty well. This is considered a public-private partnership, so we don't receive enough federal money. So any donations that we receive allow us not to use that per capita, which I can then save for rent. So any donations that come in terms of gift cards, phones, computers, all of that helps supplements it, and then I don't need to use the arrivals per capita. I can save that and use it for rent, which, if I can pay rent 3 to 4 months instead of 1 to 2, then that's really life-changing for the new arrivals because it gives them time to get acclimated, gives them time to figure out systems, and then go to work. So in Northern Virginia, again, it's the cost of living. So I've done resettlement in Baltimore and I've done it in Albany, New York on the local level, and the cost of living, as you can imagine, in both of those smaller cities is much lower. And so here, just finding landlords that are willing to rent to refugees is always a challenge, and then being able to pay the rent is difficult. And so I would encourage folks, if they have landlords that they work with, or if they are interested in private landlords, to be in touch with us. And then, as I mentioned, financial donations and in-kind contributions really offset the cost of the housing in Northern Virginia. We have a small staff, and so we rely on volunteers and community members to assist us. And so we're in the process of regrowing our volunteer program. When Afghanistan collapsed, there was a large surge of donations, in-kind, cash, and volunteerism. In the last couple of years, that has sort of fallen off. Not just for us, across nonprofits in general. And so we're really trying to rejuvenate the community. We're working with a bunch of different schools, the Murray Academy, the Potomac School, some different churches, some different mosques and synagogues, to make sure that the issues around refugees are not out of the news, and that people know that it's not just a 90-day program, that many folks will need ongoing support. And having a mentor for a family is really life-changing. And so when the initial like heavy services are kind of ending with us, a volunteer can assist and keep those families on our radar, making sure that if they have ongoing needs, that we can use those volunteers to address them. And I would say in terms of the best thing is financial donations, but we also have difficulty with transportation in Northern Virginia. So again, when I worked in Baltimore and I worked in Albany, there was a pretty extensive bus system, and there's just not here in Northern Virginia. You can take the bus or you can take the metro out to Dulles Airport, but it takes hours and hours and hours. And so we often use Uber or Lyft to get our clients around until that they are able to get their own transportation. And so we have a call out on social media and on our Amazon wish list for Uber and Lyft gift cards, because again, that's life changing. We transport clients, but many of our families are large, and so if we can say, hey, come into the office and here's an Uber gift card to do that. That's a really amazing gift card idea that folks can buy easily, and that really helps in the initial resettlement period. So we are a private sponsor organization through Welcome Corps, and I'm sure you'll learn about that on our website as well. We are going to formally launch for the Reception and Placement Program a private sponsorship program. So that allows everyday Americans to literally sponsor a family that's going to be arriving through the R&P program. And that's where it becomes important again for us to reach out into the community and say, we really need your assistance in doing that. And it gives folks the opportunity to raise funds, to meet clients at the airport, to identify housing, to be outside of the services that we provide, because they might know a landlord, or they might know an ESL provider, or they might know a donation place that we don't. And so private sponsorship in RNP really helps enhance the services that we're able to offer to new arrivals. I mean, we need all of them. Again, we work really closely with Homes Not Borders, so they need any household goods. So bedding, I just saw that they have a call out for towels. Rice cookers and pressure cookers are a big one that folks really want. Any of the kitchen supplies, bathroom supplies, toiletries, feminine hygiene products, diapers, wipes. All of the things that you can think of that cost a lot of money. Toiletries especially are expensive, feminine hygiene products are expensive, diapers, formula, all of those things that can really help save the per capita when the clients first arrive. And so, yeah, any household items are great, and we don't have the capacity right now to accept them, but we would ask that you reach out to Homes Not Borders, because we're working so closely with them. So in fiscal year 2025, which is, it just started, so fiscal years go from October 1st to September 30th. So we're in fiscal year 2025. We have a projection to welcome 200 individuals. So again, we're a pretty small R&P program, but for a mom and pop grassroots agency, that's a sizable amount. We expect that most of them will still be from Afghanistan, but we are trying to bolster our Central and South American program. And the need for extra financial donations and in-kind donations will be higher next year because we're welcoming more arrivals. So we welcomed about 100 individuals this past year and hoping to grow. And then if there's a situation where like a family is not working at 90 days, I would love to have some funds to be able to pay their rent beyond that. And there's other things that come up, like if there's a medical expense, sometimes Medicaid doesn't cover specialists. If they need a medication that's not fully covered, it's nice to have sort of a rainy day fund that I can use as needed for folks that are more vulnerable. I mean, what I always say is that if you're interested in working with refugees, we can find a place for you. So if you want to work directly with families, we're happy to have you do that. There's a basic application process and a background check. But then if you're interested in doing admin things, we always need to update our systems, databases, financial tracking. You can do a drive for us. You could do a diaper drive. You could do a towel drive. You could do an Uber gift card drive. Many of the families arrive, and while we provide them cell phones, many of them want laptops, which is great for ESL and for job development and for applications. And so there's a way to get involved. You could come into the office and help us with the diaper distribution monthly. We distribute 5,000 diapers a month through the Greater DC Diaper Bank. So the women come in for that. We need people to help take care of the children. Basically, if you're interested, I would really strongly encourage you to look at our website. All of our programs are listed there with contacts for the directors. And then we can funnel you into and give you different opportunities in what you're interested in. And then always I'm telling people too, this is my passion, right? But talk about refugee resettlement, talk about the plight of refugees around the world. Let people know that the United States is welcoming refugees. This past year we welcomed 100,000 individuals. It was fabulous. It's more than we've welcomed in decades. And President Biden just signed what's called the Presidential Determination on Refugee Admissions. So for FY 2025, the goal is to welcome 125,000 individuals to the United States, which is fabulous, but it takes a lot of community support beyond the resettlement agencies to make that happen and to make sure that it's happening successfully.